I gave my wife 5 years and $500,000 to build our dream home, and it turned out I was just funding her affair. Let me start by saying this. I used to think I was the luckiest man alive. And in a way, I still kinda do, but for totally different reasons now. I'm a 38-year-old small business owner from Indiana. Nothing flashy, just a guy who built a decent logistics company from the ground up. I've always believed in working hard, staying loyal, and keeping things simple. I've never been the most street-smart guy, but I've always treated people fairly. That's how I was raised. Then there's her. My wife, let's call her Julia. She's the type of woman who walks into a room and suddenly everyone's trying a little harder to be interesting. She's bold, creative, the kind of person who wears mismatched earrings on purpose and pulls it off. An architect by trade, but really more of a visionary, as she'd call herself. Julia lives for ideas, for aesthetics, for moments that feel cinematic. She also lives for money, not in the tacky, flashy way. No, she's more subtle about it. The type who talks about energy exchange when you split the dinner bill, or who calls herself a minimalist while collecting $900 lamps made from recycled bone. In the early days, I was hooked. She was passionate, unpredictable, ambitious. I'd never met anyone like her. And honestly, it felt good to be the stable one in the relationship. I was the grounded guy who paid the bills. She was the dreamer with big plans. We balanced each other, or so I thought. We got married after 2 years of dating.
No prenup.
I know, dumb move. But at the time, it felt like love. We didn't need paperwork. We had trust. God. Past me was so annoyingly wholesome. Anyway, fast forward a few years into the marriage, and we start talking about building our dream home. Something custom. Something us. Julia lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. She told me she wanted to design the whole thing herself, down to the doorknobs, and I was all in. I told her, you handle the creative side, and I'll take care of the money. I even joked, I don't need to know where every nail goes. Just make sure there's a good view and a decent grill. She laughed. I thought we were making memories. Turns out we were laying the foundation for something completely different. But I didn't know that yet. Back then, I still thought we were building something beautiful. I just didn't realize I was the only one actually building anything. If there's one thing Julia always knew how to do, it was talk a good game. The way she described our future house, man, it sounded like something out of a magazine. She'd sit across from me at the kitchen island, wine glass in hand, sketchbook open, talking about intentional light flow and sacred geometry, like she was building a temple. Not a two-story on the edge of Bloomington. I used to joke that I just wanted a decent toilet and a fridge big enough for my leftovers. She'd roll her eyes and say, you have no vision. And you know what? Maybe I didn't. But I did have money. So when she said she needed to oversee everything herself, I didn't argue. She said it would ruin the creative integrity if I got involved in meetings or reviewed the budget. It was her process. I figured, hey, I trust her. Let the artist do her thing. She told me she'd be managing everything, design, hiring the contractors, sourcing materials, scheduling inspections. Said she wanted it to be a surprise. A gift to us, she called it. Looking back now, that phrase hits different. A gift to us, right? So I handed her control of the build account. We opened a joint construction budget, linked it to one of my business accounts, strictly for the house. She had full access. I had limited oversight by choice, because I thought that's what supportive husbands do. And for a while things seemed fine. She'd come home late from meetings, covered in sawdust, ranting about idiot electricians and lazy drywall crews. I'd listen, nod, pour her a drink. Felt like she was in the trenches, you know? Every now and then, I'd ask for photos or updates. She'd brush it off, say she didn't want to ruin the big reveal, or that the framing was too raw for my taste. I didn't push. I figured the woman was pouring her soul into this. Last thing she needed was me hovering. But then the delays started stacking up. First, it was a contractor who ghosted. Then a shipment of reclaimed wood got misplaced. Then the city permits were taking forever. Every few months, there was some new reason we couldn't visit the site. And like an idiot, I just nodded along. That sucks, babe. Hope it clears up soon. She always had an answer. And somehow, it always made me feel like I was the one being unreasonable. Like asking about the progress of a $700,000 build was an act of aggression. I told myself she was just stressed. That I needed to back off and trust the vision. That this was just the messy middle of a big, beautiful dream. But here's the thing no one tells you about trust. You never know it's misplaced until it's way too late. Year 2 into the dream build. And at this point, I've invested more money than I care to admit. Let's just say if this were Monopoly, I'd already own Boardwalk and Park Place, plus a couple of hotels. And yet, still no house.
No walls. No balconies.
No, this is where the kitchen will go moments. Just texts from Julia saying things like, "Baby, trust the process. We're building something timeless." Timeless, apparently, meant invisible. Now, I know construction takes time. I've had friends build homes. There are always hiccups, permits, weather, flaky contractors. I'm not totally clueless. But this felt like a masterclass in how not to build a house. Every time I asked for a site visit, there was a reason it couldn't happen. They're pouring concrete today, liability issues. There's asbestos testing, it's not safe. They're doing electrical. It's chaos, you won't understand it anyway. One time I said, "Can't I just come walk the property?" And she hit me with, "Why don't you trust me?" And just like that, I was the bad guy. Again. She'd come home exhausted, drop her boots by the door like she just climbed Everest. Always complaining about contractors, engineers, inspectors. She'd vent for half an hour, then look at me and say, "But it's going to be worth it. You'll see." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But then something weird happened. I needed a copy of the land title for some insurance paperwork, so I emailed our realtor. Figured it would be a 10-minute task. Instead, I got a reply that said, Just confirming, you're referring to the vacant lot on County Road 12. Right? Vacant. Lot. I thought maybe they're just behind on updates. No big deal. Then, just out of curiosity, I drove out there. Took a little detour on my way home from work. And you know what I found? Grass, weeds, a single porta-potty, and a wooden stake with orange tape that looked like it had been there since the Obama administration. That was it. After 2 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars. The only thing built on that land was my sense of unease. I called Julia that night and asked about it. She didn't even flinch. Said they'd moved to a new off-site staging process. "It's how boutique firms do it now," she claimed. "Build in parts, assemble on-site later. More efficient." I didn't know any better, so I let it go. But in that moment, just for a second, I felt something shift. Like the first little crack in a frozen lake. Silent, small, but deep. Something was off. I just didn't know how off. Not yet. It all came to a head at a barbecue. Not a dramatic one. No shouting, no fireworks. Just one of those backyard cookouts with plastic chairs, lukewarm beer, and people arguing over which seasoning goes best on corn. The kind of thing you go to because you said yes 3 weeks ago and forgot to make an excuse. The host was a client of mine, Ben. Chill guy, owns a chain of garden centers. We'd done some freight work for him, and he invited me to his housewarming. Said he and his wife had just moved into their forever home. I showed up, made small talk, grabbed a burger, and wandered around their new place. It was gorgeous. Big windows, open floor plan, clean lines. Every little detail looked hand-picked. Not over-the-top fancy, but high-end and tasteful. And then I saw the staircase. Floating oak stairs, glass railing, custom ironwork on the sides. I froze mid-bite, because that staircase, I'd seen it before, in Julia's sketchbook. Not just similar, identical. Same wood, same pattern, same little carved wave detail at the bottom. Something she once told me she added as her signature. I felt this cold flush roll down my spine. I walked around the house like a zombie. Every room I entered felt more familiar than the last. The arched doorways, the sunken reading nook, the weirdly specific placement of a skylight above the guest bathroom. It was our house. Or rather, the house I thought we were building. Ben found me staring at the built-in shelves in the living room and laughed. Crazy detail, right? Our architect was a genius. She did everything. Total control freak. But hey, look at this place. I forced a smile and said, yeah. Mind if I ask who you used? He shrugged, took a sip of beer and said, some boutique firm out of Indy. Lady named Julia. Julia Adler or something like that. My ears were ringing. I don't even remember the rest of the conversation. I think I made up an excuse about getting a call from work. I walked to my truck on autopilot, hands shaking. Sat in the driver's seat for a solid 10 minutes, just staring at the steering wheel like it might explain something. That night, I didn't confront her. I didn't scream or accuse or flip the table. I made dinner. I asked about her day. I kissed her goodnight. Because now I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't doubting myself. I was watching. After that barbecue, everything changed. Not in the loud, dramatic way you might expect. I didn't pack a bag or demand answers. There was no screaming match, no thrown wine glass, no you lied to me moment. Instead, I went quiet. Because the thing about suspicion is, once it takes root, it doesn't scream. It whispers. Constantly. All day. Every day. Little things that never seemed weird before suddenly hit different. The next time Julia mentioned a client site visit, I asked where it was. She hesitated just for a second, then rattled off some new development 3 towns over. I nodded, smiled, and said, cool, be safe. But I started taking notes. Times, places, names she dropped in conversation. I created a little spreadsheet, nothing too fancy, just enough to track her projects. Then came the Instagram page. I hadn't looked at her professional account in years. I was always proud of her work, but I figured it was her space, not mine. But now, I scrolled like a man on a mission. And guess what I found? Photos of completed homes captioned things like, another gorgeous build for one of our dream clients. Bespoke elegance with sustainable design. Hashtag design matters, hashtag Maison Collective. I stared at one photo for 10 minutes. It was the same kitchen design I'd signed off on 2 years ago. Same backsplash. Same island. Same lighting fixtures. Julia had made me choose from 42 mood boards. But this wasn't our house. It belonged to someone named the Lowrys, according to the comments. Lowrys who, apparently, were thrilled to be living in what I thought was my future kitchen. At this point, I was bouncing between total disbelief and this icy sense of resolve. Like, okay, maybe one project got repurposed. Maybe that's how the industry works. But 2 days later, I saw another house. Same skylight placement. Same reading nook. Same goddamn floating staircase. This wasn't an isolated thing. This was a pattern. I casually brought it up over dinner one night. Something like, hey, I saw you posted a project that looks a lot like the house we're building. Are you reusing parts of the design? She didn't even blink. Oh no, that's just a placeholder render. Totally different. A placeholder render. For a house with real people in the comments saying they live there. She changed the subject immediately, started asking about my clients, my work schedule. It was like judo. Flipped the pressure and put it right back on me. And that's when I realized something else. Julia wasn't just lying. She was practiced at it. I'd always chalked up her charm to charisma. But now I saw it for what it really was. Deflection, distraction, disarming confidence. And I'd fallen for it. For years. Not anymore. That night, while she was in the shower, I opened her laptop. No password change. Big mistake. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. But what I found, that deserves its own chapter. It's weird how calm you can feel while your entire world is unraveling. That night, after Julia fell asleep, freshly lotioned, glass of Pinot on the nightstand, like nothing was wrong. I sat in the kitchen with her laptop open, heart hammering like a bass drum. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. I just knew something was there. The first thing I checked was her downloads folder. Mostly boring stuff, PDF invoices, spec sheets, mood board nonsense. But then I saw a folder called Maison Private. Now, keep in mind, she had told me the name of her design firm was just Julia Adler Studio. But this?
Maison.
French for house. Cute branding. Real subtle. Inside that folder were hundreds of files. Organized. Dated. Labeled. Lowry build. Final photos. Carmichael project. Floor plans. Elm Street renovation. Paid. Every file had a matching invoice. Every invoice listed an LLC I'd never heard of before. Maison Collective Design Group. Registered 6 months after we started building our house. Guess whose name wasn't on it?
Mine.
Then I found the banking spreadsheet. It wasn't hidden. Just innocently titled budgettracker.xlsx. It listed every client payment, build cost, and profit margin. And in the initial funding section, $210,000. Seed capital. Private investor. That's me. That's my money. The money I pulled from my business line of credit to kick off construction on our home. I was the seed investor in my wife's side hustle, and I didn't even get a t-shirt. But it gets better. Next tab? Payroll. She was paying someone named A. Dorian a salary. Biweekly. $6,500 a check. The same last name she used to casually name drop when telling stories about her college days. It rang a bell. I checked her photo library. Sorted by date. And there he was. Andrew Dorian. Scruffy beard. Designer glasses. The human equivalent of a man bun in Patagonia fleece. Photos of the two of them at job sites. At wine tastings. On a boat. Not our boat. I don't have a boat. One particularly friendly photo had her with her legs in his lap, laughing while he fed her strawberries. Caption read, "Working hard or hardly working?" I just sat there for a minute, letting it all soak in. Not even angry. Not yet. Just this strange, hollow clarity. She hadn't just cheated. She hadn't just lied. She had built a whole life without me. Funded by me, and didn't even have the decency to hide it that well. I copied everything. Every folder, every file, every receipt. Dropped it on a flash drive I kept for taxes. Put everything back like I'd never touched it. Then I washed my face, brushed my teeth, got in bed next to her, and stared at the ceiling for hours. I knew what I had to do, and it was going to take time, patience, and a damn good lawyer. I didn't sleep that night. I just laid there, staring at the ceiling like it might blink first. Next morning, Julia kissed me on the forehead and said, "Don't forget you've got that 10 a.m. call." Like nothing had changed. Like she wasn't building a secret business and getting hand-fed strawberries by her business partner. I nodded, smiled, said, "Thanks, babe." She walked out the door, heels clicking like a countdown. And the second she was gone, I got to work. First stop, Google. I searched Andrew Dorian Architect, Indiana. Boom. Maison Collective Design Group. Co-founder. Andrew Dorian. Their firm's website was slick, clean, expensive, full of language like luxury forward-thinking spaces and designing with intention. Translation, we make rich people's kitchens look like Apple stores. There was even a mission statement, get this, founded by longtime friends with a passion for holistic living and creative expression. Longtime friends, right? Friends who take boat selfies and stare at each other like a Spotify couples playlist come to life. I kept digging. Their LinkedIn pages, their business filings, property in both their names. A development contract signed 3 months ago. She didn't just cheat. She partnered up with a man she once told me she couldn't stand. Pretentious, she called him. A trust fund kid who wears cologne named after abstract nouns. And now, he was her ride or die and I was the clown footing the bill. Here's what stung the most. I wasn't just betrayed romantically. I was betrayed strategically. This wasn't some whirlwind affair in the middle of a midlife crisis. This was planned. This was intentional. She'd used our marriage like a Kickstarter campaign. Took my name, my money, my trust, and launched her real dream with someone else. So I made a new spreadsheet. This one wasn't about budgeting. This one was about revenge. I listed everything I'd found. Dates, file names, dollar amounts. I organized every screenshot, every email, every photo. I printed copies. Made backups. Hell, I even opened a Dropbox folder labeled, "In case of divorce." Then I called my lawyer. Now, my lawyer, Steve, is one of those guys who looks like he's in a constant state of polite confusion. But under that confused exterior is a divorce shark who once got a guy custody of his ex-wife's dog and favorite coffee table. I told Steve everything. He didn't interrupt, just nodded and said, "All right, let's burn it all down." Legally. Because here's the thing. Julia may be brilliant, manipulative, and wildly talented, but she made one mistake. She forgot who actually owned the money. And now, I was about to make her remember. So here's the thing about betrayal. Once the emotional part burns off, and believe me, that fire was hot, you're left with this icy clarity. Like, okay, you played me, but now I get to play back. And unlike Julia, I don't need Pinterest boards and wine tastings to pull off a masterpiece. All I need is facts and a plan. So I did what any good businessman with a broken heart and a lawyer named Steve would do. I went to war with spreadsheets. First step? Lock down the finances. I quietly removed her access to 3 of our joint accounts. Nothing too flashy, just enough to limit her movement. I rerouted business income to a separate entity under my name only. Clean, legal, quiet. Second step? Asset audit. I went full forensic. Pulled every transfer she made from our construction fund. Labeled each one. Matched it to her projects. Marked personal expenses disguised as business purchases. Like that client dinner she charged to our card at a winery in Napa. That took place on our anniversary weekend, while I was home alone with food poisoning. Oh yeah, I remembered that one. Third step? The PI. Steve recommended a guy. Quiet. Former cop. Wore sunglasses indoors. Within a week, I had a full dossier on Julia and Andrew Dorian. Site visits. Lunch dates. Overnight stays at a house I didn't even know she owned. The cherry on top? She'd listed her business residence as the very property we were supposed to be building our dream home on. So technically, I was paying the taxes on the land where she was running her secret firm and sleeping with her partner. Romantic, huh? I didn't say a word to her. Not when she texted me pictures of flooring samples. Not when she told me she had to fly to Atlanta for a design expo. Not even when she came home late smelling like sandalwood and lies. Nope, because the trap was already closing. I gave Steve the whole package. The files, the financial trail, the affair proof. Every receipt, every message. And his response? Oh man, she's screwed. And she doesn't even know it yet. The best part? Julia was still planning her big launch event. Her and Andrew's firm, Maison Collective, was going public in a few weeks. She'd even asked me if I could sponsor the wine. I told her, of course, babe, whatever you need, because I was gonna show up, front row, with a surprise. Not flowers, not a toast, something better, something she'd never forget. If you've ever been to a rich people event, you know the vibe. The lighting is too soft, the wine is too dry, and everyone's using phrases like pivoting the brand experience without irony. That was the scene at Maison Collective's official launch gala. A sleek, invite-only affair at some converted art museum downtown. Exposed brick, hanging lights, music that sounded like an IKEA commercial. Very on-brand. Julia was glowing. She was in this black satin dress, hair slicked back, makeup sharp. She looked like someone who'd just conquered something, like a queen about to make her victory speech. She didn't know the walls were already on fire. She greeted me with a cheek kiss and a glass of red. "You actually came," she said, smiling like this was a celebration for both of us. I said, "Wouldn't miss it for the world." And I meant it. The first part of the evening was typical nonsense. Networking, tiny food on sticks, people saying stunning every 4 seconds. Then came the big moment, the founder's speech. Julia and Andrew took the stage like prom royalty. They had a projector, a clicker, the whole TED Talk setup. Julia started by thanking everyone, talking about her journey, the importance of trust and passion in design, blah blah blah. Then she said, "This wouldn't be possible without the people who believed in us from the beginning." And I thought, lady, you have no idea how true that is. That's when I stood up. Calm. Smooth. I walked to the stage like I'd been invited. You could feel the confusion ripple through the room. Julia's face froze mid-smile. Andrew blinked like someone just pulled the fire alarm in his soul. I took the mic from her hand. Gently, respectfully, like a gentleman with a flamethrower behind his back. And I said, "Good evening. My name is James Adler. I'd like to take a moment to personally thank the founders of Maison Collective, Julia and Andrew, for their incredible work. After all, I funded it." Silence. Like dead. Oxygen sucked from the room. Silence. I pulled a little remote from my jacket pocket. Clicked the projector. Up came the first slide. $210,000 transfer. Adler Logistics to Maison account. Then, private construction photos. Captioned, "Our dream home." Then, vacation photo, Julia and Andrew. Working hard or hardly working? Gasps. Actual gasps. Someone dropped a wine glass. I kept going. A full 5-minute slideshow of receipts, bank transfers, property filings, and texts. Nothing fake. Just the truth in HD. I ended with a single slide. Built on lies. Paid for by me. Then I handed the mic back, smiled, and said, "Congrats on the launch. Oh, and the IRS will be in touch. Cheers." And I walked out. Just like that. No yelling. No drama. Just surgical precision. Like pulling the pin on a grenade and setting it gently on the table. By the time I got to my truck, my phone was blowing up. Missed calls. Angry texts. Some from her, some from mutuals, a few from unknown numbers, probably lawyers or wine sponsors. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I drove to Waffle House, ordered a stack of pancakes, and sat there alone, smiling into my syrup like a man who just reclaimed his entire life. The morning after the gala was weirdly quiet. No phone calls.
No texts.
Nothing. It was the silence before the storm, the kind of silence that only comes when people are too stunned, embarrassed, or legally advised to speak. By noon, the phone started ringing. First was a number I didn't recognize. Voicemail. "Hi James. This is Alicia from Magnolia Development. We were listed as a partner on Maison Collective's new portfolio, and after some things came to light, we'd love to speak to you about your involvement. Please call back." Then a second one. "Hey, this is Trent from Modern House Digest. We were about to feature Julia's firm, but, yeah, call us." By 3 p.m., she finally called. Blocked number. Of course. I let it go to voicemail. She sounded shaken. "James, what the F asterisk did you do? You completely humiliated me. You don't understand what you've done. This is my career. This is my life." She never said sorry. Not once. Just anger. It was never about what she did, only about what I'd exposed. Later that night, I got a message from Steve, my lawyer. Just one line. "She's bleeding out. Pull the trigger." So we did. Filed the lawsuit. Civil and marital. Fraud. Asset misappropriation. Breach of fiduciary duty. The works. Steve sent it directly to her office, which, by the way, was already looking like a funeral home by that point. Word had spread. The slideshow went viral in the local design community. A few clients backed out immediately. One of them, the same Lori's whose house I'd seen at the barbecue, threatened to sue them for misrepresentation. But the real kill shot. The IRS. See, Steve had a friend. And Steve's friend had a very strong opinion about shell LLCs, unreported income, and shady business write-offs that include Napa weekends and $4,000 floor lamps. Turns out, Julia never reported half of the income that came from those client builds. She funneled everything through the Maison account and didn't declare it on our joint returns. She was so focused on hiding everything from me, she forgot the IRS has better lawyers. By the end of the week, she was facing 2 client lawsuits, pending audit, frozen business accounts, a business partner who, surprise, bailed immediately. Andrew Dorian? He ghosted, deleted social media, moved back to Chicago. Apparently, vision boards don't do much when federal investigators come knocking. Julia tried to call again. I didn't answer. She sent me a 3-page email titled, Foreclosure, and started it with, I never meant to hurt you. I just got lost in the dream. Girl, you didn't get lost. You got greedy. There's a difference. The best part? I still hadn't even filed for divorce yet. That part? That was coming next. But before I did, I had one last thing to take care of. Because while Julia was busy trying to save her sinking ship, I had my eye on a little patch of land out on County Road 12. You remember the one she never built on. After the gala wrecked her reputation and the lawsuits started rolling in, Julia went dark. Like full ghost mode. No calls.
No emails.
Not even a passive-aggressive Instagram quote about betrayal and rebirth. Honestly, I expected a fight. I expected her to come storming in with some crocodile tears and designer lawyer, trying to salvage something. But nothing. Which made me think, what else is she hiding? So I followed the money. Remember that piece of land we bought together? The one on County Road 12? Where our dream home was supposed to go. Well, my name was nowhere on the deed. Not as an owner. Not as a cosigner. Nothing. Turns out, 6 months into the build, she transferred the land, which I paid for, into a private LLC registered under her name. And guess who the second listed owner was? Yup. Andrew F*** ing Dorian. ***. Let that sink in. The land. The one she told me was ours. The one I visited, remember that, with the porta-potty and the sad little weed garden. It was never ours. It was theirs. She used my money to buy it, then quietly funneled the deed into a shell company with her boyfriend. She used the home build as a front to extract more funding. All while she was building luxury homes for actual clients using designs she told me were just sketches. This wasn't just betrayal. It was straight-up financial warfare. Now here's the beautiful part. Because the funds came from my business account, corporate funds, properly documented, her little switcheroo triggered something called fraudulent conveyance. Fancy legal term. Basically means you can't just move assets you don't own to dodge accountability. Steve pounced on it like a lion on a wounded antelope. He filed a motion to seize the land. Not just to void the transfer but to take it. Because technically, Julia and Andrew had acquired the land with stolen money. So the court froze the LLC, froze the asset, and in the final ruling, the land was awarded back to me. Fully. Clean title.
No liens. No strings.
Julia cried in court. First time I'd seen her cry since the whole thing started. Not for me. Not for the marriage. She cried over losing the land. That's when I knew she never loved me. Not really. She loved the funding. And when I walked out of that courthouse with full ownership of the property she thought she'd stolen out from under me. Man, I felt like Ocean's 11, but from Indiana. So what did I do with the land? Oh, you're gonna like this. So there I was. Divorced. Debt-free.
Lon legally mine.
Julia? Reputation ruined. Business dead. IRS breathing down her neck like a Hallmark tax horror story. Andrew? Gone like a fart in the wind. Last I heard, he was trying to rebrand himself as a spiritual minimalist on YouTube. But me? I had 4.3 acres of spite-soaked soil and a clean slate. So I did what any mildly unhinged, emotionally processed man would do. I built a dog park. Yep, a public, off-leash, donation-based dog park. Right on the property where Julia once promised we'd build our forever home. Called it Faithful Acres.